Everybody, and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your Leeds United news show today. We've got quite a bit of news to get into. We're going to talk about Leeds United's link to Sevilla winger Ruben Vargas. We'll talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk about a potential exit on the cards for Elon Melier. I think if you guys are like me, which I know a lot of you are on Melier, I just want to see him go now. I've had enough. I want him to go and move on with his career, I'm being totally honest. And finally, we're going to talk a bit about a few things that Graham Smyth, or Graham Smyth as I like to call him, has been saying regarding the January transfer window as well. So 3 big stories tonight. Obviously, if you are watching live, get your comments in as always. And if you are watching after the fact, get your comments in as well. And if you could drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help the channel. But without further ado, let's just get into it because, you know, as I said, got a bit to get into today. Also, apologies, you probably can't tell at this moment in time, but I have got a bit of a sore voice. So if that does come into play, I do apologise. Anyway, let's start with the Ruben Vargas story. As you can see, he is there on the screen on my right-hand side. And reports coming from Spain suggesting that Leeds United are preparing a move for Ruben Vargas. And it looks like the structure of the deal would be a small base payment in January of around 7.9 million or 9 million euros. And then with add-ons that could take it to 17.6 million pounds. It also says in the report that Sevilla would be open to selling Ruben Vargas in the January transfer window as well. And for anyone that doesn't know about Vargas, to give you a bit of an understanding of what he is, right winger, 27 years old. He's got 7 goal contributions so far this season, I think 11 games. So quite a nice return so far this season. I think that splits into 3 goals and 4 assists. He's still got 4 years left on his contract as well as Sevilla. He's actually been brought to Sevilla by, of course, Victor Orta, who we'll all know quite well. He played at Augsburg a few years ago and was quite successful there. But that's the bit of a player profile of him. The thing that worries me, I've got to be honest about this player before we get into the structure of the deal and sort of is this something that Leeds United should do and is this something that Leeds United are going to do? I did see something and notice something that does concern me, and this is his injury record. He seems to have quite a strong injury problem with his hamstrings. And anyone knows anything about hamstrings, and not that I confess to be a doctor in this field, but everyone knows that when you do your hamstring once, you tend to continuously do it. And we've seen that with unfortunately Vargas over the last few years. Obviously, decent player, as I said, but no good if you're not going to be playing. And as I said, the injury concern to his hamstring is definitely a problem. He missed 10 games last season, 88 days out with a hamstring injury, and he's also had another hamstring injury this year. Obviously, Leeds United seem to prioritise buying players with an injury record at this moment in time. When you look at Lucas Mecha, when you look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, when you look at Okafor, etc., we have seemed to bought quite a players with a bit of a ropey past, let's say. Obviously, Nemecha and DCL was on a free, and I don't think you get them players on a free if they don't have the injury records that they do. But that does concern me slightly. The other thing to mention as well is that Sunderland and Newcastle apparently both interested in the deal. So, you know, with Sunderland there, we might as well walk away right now, aren't we? Based on what we saw in the summer transfer window. But no, I do think it's an interesting proposition for Leeds United. There's a few things I want to say about this deal, though, in terms of what I expect and do I expect this to happen. The first thing to say is the source coming in from Spain is not one of an elite calibre. This is something that's, I'd say, unreliable is probably the best term of saying it. They're not something that get all the stuff right. They do get some stuff right, but not everything. And the other thing that I always worry about with these sort of stories is I always think, what's the ulterior motive? Is the motive that Leeds United actually want to buy this player, or is the motive something else? And I'll give you an example that I think potentially could be going on with this Vargas situation. It's obviously obvious, based on the report, that Sevilla want rid of Vargas. They want to move him on. And I think probably what's happened here is, and this happens all the time, this is not a unique scenario, is that basically Sevilla has said to Vargas, look, you're not part of our long-term future. We'd like you to move on in the January transfer window. Then when they say that, what ends up happening is Vargas tells his agent, and his agent starts scoping out possible moves for Vargas, and this is how it works. Now, this is all good, but what ends up happening when that is that sometimes they basically say stories out there and link him to clubs that potentially not even involved in a race for him, just to spark up interest in the player and hope that another club would look at it and go, wow, look, Vargas is available, let's go in there and do the deal. That's not me saying Leeds United are not there and don't want to do this deal, but we do see a lot of times with this sort of deal where a club doesn't want a certain player, their agent comes out and basically says, look, this team wants them, and it's to spark up interest in the player. This is not an uncommon strategy. So I think when you talk about this, you've got to bear in mind that that could be the situation. But overall, as I said, I think there's true potential in it in terms of this is a right winger. It hits the right age profile at 27. Probably hits the right price tag. So I think there is caution that Leeds United could be linked. But again, does that spark more like interest? Because other clubs also know that Leeds United are in the market for a certain player, and so do agents. Hence, this could be put out into the ethos, I guess. But yeah, that's the first story regarding Vargas. As I said, I'm not fully sure on it, to be honest. And as I said, do we want more injuries? Obviously, as I said, got potential, but I'm not fully sure. The next story I want to talk about is, of course, Illan Meslier. So, Elon Melier somehow, as we know, has got clubs on the table that actually want to take him up on a deal. And then clubs are looking at Inter Milan, you're looking at AC Milan, and this has been told by Football Insider again today, talking about the fact that Melier could leave Leeds United in the January transfer window with them two clubs interested. Now, the thing is with this situation, and this didn't say this in the report, but realistically, we don't need to. I know people all want to sell Melier, people want to sell Harrison, etc. And there has been a few talks about that as well. Truthfully, we're not going to get a lot of money these players. And Melier is probably the bottom tier. Only got 6 months left on his contract. Obviously, he's going to leave in the summer for free. These clubs can already start negotiating with Melier as well. So for me, unless this is potentially £500,000 or maybe as much as $1 million, Inter Milan nor AC Milan are going to be paying anything for Melier because obviously they can start talking to him in the January transfer window. Obviously, clubs around in Europe can start doing that. So we're not going to get a lot of money for things. The only thing that you've got to bear in mind with Melier is because we got put him on quite a good contract before we got relegated, and obviously that would instate that if we got back to the Premier League, he would be on decent money. So he's actually on decent money at the football club. So I think the main saving, in my personal opinion, is probably not the money we're going to get in for Melier in terms of a fee. It's probably more saving on the wages that he's going to pay. And then you look at it and you go, okay, let's get his wages off the bill if we can, and then see if we can use them wages and put them towards a player on wages that we could actually use. I'm looking at a loan player in that sense, or could we bring someone in on a free? Probably not, because that's probably more a summer thing. But can we look at a loan player to bring in? Someone that's actually going to be more important for the situation. Jack says, evening Scott, evening to you too, Jack. He also says, anything above zero, and we've had their pants down. Yeah, I agree. Look, Melier's not going to go for a lot of money. Everybody knows it. Well, as I said, for me, let's get him off the wage bill. I hated the thing in the summer about it was good to keep him. I never thought there was any truth in that. So for me, yeah, let's get him off the wage bill and let's bring somebody else in who could actually benefit this Leeds United team, and let's use them wages in the right way, shall we? I think that's got to be the benefit moving forward. But yeah. Let's see where that happens. But I do think there is starting to be. I almost think there's a chance that Leeds United let him go on a free in January. I don't think that would be the end of the world if the fee was just so minimal. Because obviously we might as well. If he's not going to play, which he isn't, he's third choice keeper at this moment in time. We might as well move him on and get them wages, which is quite high, which is really high actually for a third choice keeper, off the wage bill, and bring someone in who is going to provide more of an option for Leeds United. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. We seem to be flying through it tonight actually, and that is all around Graham Smyth. So he's been talking on the Inside Ellen Road podcast, as you can see in the top of the screen there. And he's been basically saying that he's got full confidence in Underwood, Evans and Daniel Farke to get January business deals. And he also said that he expects Leeds United to do business in the January transfer window. Now, of course, this is not the first time that the YP have talked about Leeds United doing stuff in the January transfer window. We know they expect to do stuff in the January transfer window. The only thing that we've always been a bit concerned about on this channel is obviously that Robbie Evans said, obviously the Leeds United CEO said in the summer that Leeds United were probably not going to do anything in the January window. I think, and this is just a hunch and there's no truth in this, but I believe that they thought the summer transfer window was better than it was. I also think they thought that the Leeds United squad was probably better than it was. And I think probably what they've seen so far this season is actually Leeds United, yes, have been doing all right at this moment in time and are doing well, but we don't have one of the strongest teams in the league. We have, maybe this summer, we didn't quite do enough business in us, which we know. But I don't think that was the situation with the 49ers. You listen to what the 49ers said after the summer transfer window. I think they thought they did a really good job. And I think they thought they've given a really, really competitive squad. And I think they've probably been shocked at where the level of the Premier League is, in my personal opinion, which is why I think I would expect now they change their mind and they do go into the January transfer window and they do try to do some deals to bring a few players in the window, which I think they weren't probably anticipating to do. We know obviously they put money towards Harry Wilson in the summer. So maybe that money would be there that you can spend again. Maybe they've put money towards. So as I said, that money's there probably to spend in the summer. Obviously, we know you can do loans. We've talked about the benefits of loans in the January transfer window in terms of because it's a World Cup year, you would expect other players to want to leave their current football club and go on loan to see if they can get into a World Cup squad, whichever nation that is as well. So I do think there's a lot of options in the transfer window for Leeds United. I do think Leeds United will do stuff in the transfer window. And as I said, Graham, we know he's got contacts inside the club and he's talked on record quite a number of times now about the fact that Leeds United are going to do stuff in January. So I think that is important. He also said, which I think is quite interesting as well, and this is important, he said, January business will be done early and not last minute. Now, if there's any truth in this, I'm not, how sure I am, I'm not 100% sure. But what I can say is that for me, when we do in January transfer window, it is important that we can obviously get them involved in the match day squads as soon as possible. And to do that, obviously, we need them coming in as early into January as humanly possible. The best case scenario is we sign him on the 1st of January. Probably not going to happen, but that would be the best case scenario, of course. Jack says, easy to say in hindsight, but I'm not selling him after the first Premier League season was one of the worst decisions of the Orta era. Yeah, I know. I wrote that down in my notes, actually. And you're talking about Melier here. The Melier situation, that was a disaster not selling Melier. We should have sold him when we got relegated. We should have sold him, obviously, in that first year after Melier had a fantastic season. The only thing I will say to that, and I want to be honest with where I was at that moment in time, not the year we got relegated, but the season before that, or maybe even the season before that, after he had that fantastic season under Bielsa in the first season where he finished 9th, obviously his valuation was sky high at that moment in time. We had Man United, Bayern Munich, everyone in the dog was looking at Illan Meslier. I didn't want to sell Melier at that moment in time because I thought this is a young keeper. We expect development. We expect him to go up in value more and more and more. So I didn't want to sell at that moment. So I can understand the football club also not wanting to do that. Obviously, it looks like a massive mistake in hindsight. But I must admit, yes, obviously in this channel we look at hindsight. But if you put me back to that time after that fantastic season that Melier had, I was of the opinion that he was only going to get more and more expensive as he got better and had more time and exposure in the Premier League, and his valuation was going to open up. So I can sort of understand the football club keeping him at that moment. The only one that I disagree with, and is that there was a report after when we got relegated with Melier that we could have sold him for about £20 million to Marseille. That if we didn't do that, and that there is truth in that, that is a diabolical bit of business because that should have been done at that moment in time. There is no excuse for not selling him at that moment, and obviously it's been pretty much a disaster ever since. Dropped from the team now, stock on the absolute floor, just a mess, a complete mess. Anyway, that is the news today. A bit of a shorter show, but I hope you've enjoyed it as always. As I said, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, does massively help the channel. And I will see you tomorrow as we obviously talk about Daniel Farke's press conference, and we'll talk about where hopefully we've got Nemecha back fit and how obviously we're going to go into that Crystal Palace game. So stick around for that, obviously, if you are around tomorrow at 8 PM. But other than that, I will see you later, everybody. Bye for now.